Amber Walk's Slut March was a moment, I would say. It was a moment.
Okay.
When the hoes were like, not only we're marching and we're proud to be hoes and we're topless. And I was amazed by this hurricane of hoes. And Kim went at her, and then all the hoes jumped on Kim's side and they just dunked on this teenager. Like, they were in their 30s. Amber Rose jumps in, like the hoes, it was a hoe hive, right?
Girl, really?
So for those who don't know, Candace Owens has always had this fascination for the hoe culture. And so she sat down with Joe Budden to talk about who she blames for the hoe culture. Let's listen to this and check it out. Like the video and subscribe. Let's get it.
The whole movement, which I've been a beneficiary of, so I don't want to clown it too much. But please tell me about your views on the hoes. Not homewreckers, just the hoes.
I'm so glad you asked me this question because I am a hoologist. I've done academic research into the matter.
That's my favorite part of you, the hoologist.
Yes, the hoologist. I genuinely am fascinated.
Me too.
The mind of a hoe is fascinating to me.
Me too.
Like, it's just, I can't look away. I remember when I went on the Whatever podcast and I was sitting with 3 hoes and I was just beside myself, you know.
Wait, you did a podcast with hoes?
Yeah. Could you imagine? So
No.
There's this podcast called the Whatever Podcast, and it's just a guy, and he just will pick 3 hoes, and they're like, "What do you do for a living?" And I'm a prostitute, and then they go to the next girl.
How'd you get there?
I'm an OnlyFans model. This is the whole point of the show. Then he just throws in like one conservative in the mix, and
Oh God.
and at first when a person wanted me to go on the show, I was like, I don't want to sit in a room and listen to hoes for 3 hours.
Oh, that's the best.
I am so glad I went because it was the closest I was like Steve Irwin. I was like, let me get a little bit closer. Like, I
Rest in peace.
I was not worthy. Like, I couldn't believe it. Anyways, I'm fascinated by hoes. I am fascinated by just how quickly we have arrived at this stage, which is a hopocalypse. It's a hopocalypse now. Like, it is, everybody is
You don't think there's always been?
No, not in this way. No. People are competing to be the biggest hoe. Something tripped over. I actually, with my academic research, I tried to look at the moment where things got really crazy. It was around 2015. Like, something, I'm not saying that hoes didn't exist before, but I mean something switched up where it was like, not only like, because before, if you're a hoe, you weren't like proud. Like, the pride that they have in being a part of the hoedom is fascinating to me, right? Something changed. Where
I theorized
if
this
you,
too.
yeah, if you were a prostitute back in the day, it was something that brought you shame, and you were maybe doing this to make ends meet. Now it's like, no, they are proud of being prostitutes. They are proud of going out to the highest bidder. And so I'm fascinated by it. And something happened in 2015. Amber Walk's Slut March was a moment, I would say. It was a moment.
Okay.
When the hoes were like, not only we're marching and we're proud to be hoes and we're topless and we're here to stay. And I was amazed by this hurricane of hoes that landed very, very suddenly in Los Angeles. And I think that was a moment. And then there was also this weird thing where like Kim Kardashian and Emily Ratajkowski like teamed up on Chloe Grace Moretz. She was at the time like a 19-year-old teenager, and she was, you know, Kim did her like weird host stuff where she's like, LOL, nothing to wear, and she was like fully naked on Twitter. And this teenage girl who's like a very like, you know, I'm not as well known as Kim Kardashian, but she was like, you know, don't you think that you should tell girls that we can be more? And Kim went at her, and then all the hoes jumped on Kim's side and they just dunked on this teenager. Like, they were in their 30s. Amber Rose jumps in, like the hoes, it was a hoe hive, right? Going after a teenager, and they were like, no, we're here now. Like, we are spiking the ball on people that have morals, right? And I'm fascinated by it. And
Do you not think hoes have morals?
obviously, if you are selling yourself to the highest bidder, you are not morally aspirational, right? Your moral is money, right? Your moral is money. That is a main component of being a hoe, is that you do it because there's a revenue. And so you're willing to do that. I mean, I've done a lot of research. I sat down with a prostitute on my show, and working through her mentality, I was asking her, what about your son? And you could see she didn't want to talk about it. I was like, how do you think it feels for him when his friends can book his mom, right? Just like want to walk through that. And yeah, it's about,
What did she say?
She was like, his friends, he doesn't care. I was like, nobody listening believes you right now. Nobody believes that your son, and we already know how teenage boys are and what he's gonna go through, because you're not just being a hoe, you're a proud hoe. You want people to know your name, right? To know that you offer services, and these are the services, here's how much you have to pay. So there's a lot to unpack there.
You follow the money in all of the topics.
I do.
I like that about you, but it's interesting to know. I don't know, are you able to put it aside ever?
Well, to understand what motivates people to debase themselves and become so outwardly and obviously immoral, and then they get defensive because they know. At the end of the day, you can lie to the whole world, but you're dying with the truth. You will die into yourself. You go to bed, you know it's bullshit. And this is why I say even about jumping back to transgenderism. It's like you could tell everybody, I'm a woman, use the right pronouns. You're a grown man. When you go to bed at night, in the back of your head, you're like, bro, I'm not a woman. This is a joke, right? So you will they're dying with the truth, but that's why they're so desperate for people to affirm them in their immorality, is because they hope that if enough people lie to them, then the lie will become the truth. And I'm just always gonna be a brick wall with that, right? So yes, being a hoe is immoral. Sleeping with people's husbands is immoral. Just because you're Ariana Grande and you make a ton of money doesn't make you not immoral, right? Everything you've done has been despicable. And people should call you out on that. If they wanna listen to your music and bop to it, fine. Whitney Houston's better. Like, it is what it is. But hoes have created an environment which is even more astonishing. They're not doing this for women. Of course not. What you just said, I benefited from the hoedom. Can a woman stand up and say that they benefited from the hoedom? From the availability of sex?
See, I say yes.
No, they can't. You have benefited, men have benefited.
No, I think that women can say that.
The ones that are selling their bodies can and saying I'm making money, but the ones that have morals and want to date a man that has morals and want to come together and raise children are now having to deal with the fact that these women at the end of the day are porn stars, right? They're trying to dress it up. It's only whatever. You're a porn star by another name. And pornography and addiction to pornography is a major ill in our society, and men are struggling with this. I talk about pornography on my show and the amount of men that go, thank you for even being willing to take on this topic, because it's everywhere. We've now edited ourselves where we don't even appreciate or recognize that it's all softcore porn. Look at a Gucci bag and women are half naked. Why? Can you not sell this bag without your titties? I don't understand this. So porn is a cancer. It's a cancer on the mind. There have been so many psychological experiments to what it does to people when they're introduced to it too young. I actually thought it was an act of bravery when Ye spoke about his struggle with pornography, because men don't normally talk about it. Yeah.
And I think a lot of men struggle with this because it's
and they shouldn't be ashamed.
It's right in our face.
Yeah.
But that kind of ties into the whole movement. I think you hit some of that on the head with your Kim Kardashian talk. But Instagram, period. I do remember when it was for pictures. People would wake up and take pictures of the sun rising and, hey, this is what I ate today. I remember that in 09-ish. And I also remember the influx, not even the influx, but the basketball wives joining Instagram. And then the pictures became, very luxurious. It was courtside, it was bags, it was jewelry, it was trips. It was all these things that are attractive to women. And I think that one of the ways to get in that game is flesh and to show it. And then we've seen the rise from that. That's all they use Instagram for. And now it's a soft porn site, and now the guys are just
And guys are biologically wired, so why I always want men to hear, don't be ashamed about having that conversation, because how unfair. Men are biologically wired differently to women. Everything that surrounds them is tempting them with this addiction, right? And then you'll have women on the other side of that talking about men and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, we are the biggest perpetuators of pornography are women, okay? And then he cheated on me. Men ain't shit. Guys, there's a yin and a yang here, and we have weakened men. We continue to weaken men. Women continue to weaken men, because that's what pornography ultimately does. It weakens men. It does. And the people that purvey pornography, the ones that are making the money off it, know it. They know that. They know it's weird, but it's thought of. There are people that are Machiavellian thinking about how do I weaken this person and turn him to a slave of his desires.
Okay, guys, so I did my notes, and I noticed that Candace Owens has a lot of these catchphrases she attributes to the whole culture, right? At one point, when she was talking about the slut walk, she said, it was a hurricane of hoes. So instances like that in this interview really had me kind of laughing. But, you know, Candace said she's done academic research on this topic. And so I jotted down some notes. And when she talked about the slut walk, I remembered that being a moment where I would say conservative women were puzzled, to say the least, because it was like, are we celebrating immorality? Are we celebrating these women doing the wrong things? Everything my mother taught me not to do, everything we shame. Are they trying to say that this whole culture or slut walk culture is the right thing and the thing we should be teaching the children? And I remember thinking it's not that deep. But then as we go into 2025, maybe it was something there that started this mindset of, yeah, it's okay to do certain things. And I always talk about the mentality of a young woman who's growing up in this social media era where you might be in high school and you have all of these followers. And so then you graduate and you think to yourself, I don't have to go to college. I have followers. I could turn this into multiple things, whether it's, you know, being a stripper, OnlyFans model, you know, some kind of Instagram model, getting a Fashion Nova deal. It's almost like a gateway into this. And I don't think, you know, the OF stuff is always the absolute route that those people will take, but it does seem like, okay, you start with the Fashion Nova deal and you might get a couple of deals from fashion brands, and will at some point, will it lead you to that? And it is something that isn't really talked about enough, and I pray that, you know, there's safeguards around to let young women know they don't have to go down that route. And I think it makes me afraid when I think about what would I do if I have a daughter with a woman who thinks certain things is okay. Now, also, I do think it was a point where Candace was throwing a lot of these things in the same bucket. And yeah, there is a mindset of, if you participate in any of this, you can be categorized as a certain type of woman. But I do think it's a difference between a real prostitute, a OF model, and an Instagram model. Now, a lot of people might look at them and say they're all the same. They're all the same type of women. And sure, you can say they're all women who are willing to profit off of how they look, but the business and how they go about it is totally different. In my opinion, I don't look at a straight up prostitute the same way I look at an Instagram model, or even the same way I look at an OF model. And so there are women within this world that do operate on a business level and they don't fall for anything. But unfortunately, because of the nature of the beast, you will have people who are a little more conservative who would say, you know, I have morals. They'll say, well, all of it is the same stuff. But there are actually girls who stripped for money to go to college, they got a degree, and then they stopped. But I do know those percentages are very low, right? There are OF models who get in the game, make some money, and then turn into an entrepreneur. Now that girl's a real estate agent. But those percentages are low, but I don't think that those people should not be talked about. You see what I'm saying? And so I do try to tell women, okay, if you've put yourself in this type of lifestyle, be aware of what you're doing, be aware of what it can lead to, and what this will look like when you 40 and you still doing the same stuff. Now, also when she talked about IG being softcore, Pinot now, yeah, it is like that. And like I talked about earlier, I do feel like Instagram has had a toll on the youth. And I think it's why these kids are more mature now with the content that they pay attention to, because, when I was young, some of the stuff on Instagram, that would have been enough for me. But now these kids see that every day and they're like, oh, that's nothing. That's light work. And so I think that starts to get them to go down the path where they're looking for more hardcore stuff. And so, yeah, I think we're getting to a point where these kids at a younger age, they're being exposed to more sexual stuff. And so it is something that needs to be talked about. And yeah, men shouldn't be afraid to talk about having certain addictions. But I do think there is this concept that women, they're not interested in that kind of content. And you go on TikTok all the time. And on TikTok, it's this new thing where you see all of these like quote unquote attractive men, guys wearing tight jogging pants and things of that nature. And I love to look at the women in the comments thirst trapping, talking about, I'm zooming in. Like, women are just as thirsty over men on social media as women. And so I'm sure, and look, I know from personal experience that women have been into XXX content just as much as men. And so I don't like that mindset of, it's just men who are addicted to stuff like this. No, women get down in it too, but maybe they're better at, concealing it or hiding it. But I would say it's a lot of women with XXX addictions as well. So men, don't think it's just you. There's women out here who have that same addiction. Trust me. But yeah, Candace, she's one of those people now where it's like, you might not like all of her opinions, but she'll say something where you're like, okay, I can agree with that. But here's the main thing too, and I want to end this with this. When we talk about putting this blame on Kim Kardashian and Amber Rose, these are both women who dated Kanye West. And I had to say, can I give some of this credit to Kanye? Like, these are Kanye's girls. These are Ye's girls. And would some of that influence have not have been so widespread if it wasn't for Kanye and his backing of both of these women? Now, I do always like to remind people that Kim was very successful before she met Kanye. But when it came to certain parts of the culture, like black culture, Kanye definitely helped her appeal to the black audience a little more. Even though I did know people who loved to watch that show on Bravo, a lot of black people, but still, it was obvious once Kanye gave her that stamp, she was kind of like good in the hood, right? She can come to the picnic or the cookout. Same thing with Amber Rose. After she broke up with Kanye, black people kind of just accepted Amber Rose. And by the time she was supporting Trump, it was too late. She already has done her thing in hip hop, in the urban space. She made her money. And so, anybody who was talking about, oh, I don't like who she's supporting politically. Well, she already came through and made her money. But yeah, these are both two women who were associated to Kanye West. And I thought that was interesting as well. So y'all let me know what y'all think about this. Like the video and subscribe. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.